Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that break there. We are going into our infamous pain point session, so looking forward to that. Sometimes things can get a little heated, as we've talked about before, so we've employed some security here for Rick in case things get a little bit touchy out there. But we're excited, really. We're going to have mics out. Please do come to the mic stand so the folks on the live stream can hear your questions. Again, if you don't want to ask the question out loud, you can ask someone near you to ask the question. There are some bold people out there in the crowd, so I guarantee you can get your question asked. We were asked to read the antitrust policy again. I'm sorry, but it's a good thing before people get a little bit excited sometimes. RESO strives to increase competition in the marketplace and will not be a forum for anti-competitive conduct. So thank you for thinking about that before you ever name a specific company. We're talking about concepts, subject matter, technology, business, not specific companies. So thank you for that. So let's kick it off with Rick Herrera, your leader, and his bodyguard.
All right. Thank you, guys. Can you hear me? Is this on? Test? All right, I think that's better, right?
Yeah, you're on.
All right, I'm going to start by addressing the elephant in the room right now. Does this fool really think he can put on a sports coat and a RESO t-shirt? Does this actually work in any way? I know it does not. But I actually had a really nice black button shirt that's in the suitcase that was packed. It looked really sharp. It was crisp, clean. But after seeing Sam in that black shirt all week long, I was like, if I actually come up here and we both have the same thing on and look like our moms dressed us, you know, I just didn't want to risk it. So this is what I went with. Pain points is really a topic that's really about you guys. And I want to start by just kind of expressing some of the items, some of the things that we've talked about in the past, and some of the results that have come of it, right? We're all here for a reason. If there's not success and value that comes out of it, then why are we here? I think there's a lot of big programs that have been very successful that have come directly out of the pain point sessions. We did a lot of talks today about certification, analytics, the reporting dashboards, understanding data richness, saturation reports. Those are all asks that came directly out of pain point sessions. UPI and wanting to find a solution for deduplication is something that also, came out of work groups, came out of pain point from people talking about, hey, I have a challenge. It's not a technical challenge. This is not necessarily a technical session. We have a lot of technical people here, and we can go that path if we need to. But this is about just solving problems and talking about ideas, talking about what it is that affects you. The RED program, I think, has been remarkably successful. In pain point sessions, people talked about we really need a way to educate and bring staff up to speed. We're a unique industry, and we have our unique rules. And so the RED program was a direct result of people saying, hey, I have a problem. It's not a technical problem. It's a business problem. It's an operations problem. And so those are the kinds of things that we can talk about. Everything is on the table. So with that, I will ask this question first. How many of you here today, especially after being here a few days, feel like every problem out there has already been solved? RESO is perfect. There's nothing left.
Oh, we
got one guy. One guy. So for the rest of you, what is that thought that you had that kept you from raising your hand? That's what we want to talk about here. That's what we want to talk about today. And so, the other question I'll ask is, what really keeps you up at night? What is it that's really you worry about that maybe we can help out with?
Data. Let's just be clear on that. We don't want to. We're not accepting all things to talk about today that keep you up at night.
True. I will say for me, I've got two things. And so I will kick us off with number one, RESO Data Dictionary 2.0. To me, this is a big lift. We talked to 500 plus MLSs, multiple feeds for a lot of MLSs. We have mappings for all of this stuff. And with 2.0, we have a ton of work to do. I mean, a lot of mapping work to do. And so I know for me, that's a big topic. We got our first notice from one of the major vendors that said, we're about ready to roll out. The implementation that's being done here is kind of joining 1.7 and 2.0 in one feed. I honestly, in my head, I expected it to be two entirely separate APIs and endpoints. And so when this came, I was like, how am I going to deal with this? And so we've had to have some conversations, carve stuff out. I don't know if they would like to come up, if there's anybody that'd be willing to talk about that technical challenge or that technical implementation. I was hoping somebody might be willing to talk about that. Is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, I'm Donna from CoreLogic. So what we're basically doing, our developers spent a lot of times, so they've actually got the legacy values as well as the new values. So when we actually do the upgrade, it's going to take a couple days to finish all the data. But when you send your queries in, it will still be able to read the old values. But when you get it back, it's going to come back in the new values. So you can start making your adjustments to it. But basically, they're in the data structure that they've set up. They've put it with what the new old data value is and what the legacy is, so it actually already matches up. As well as the fact that we have a team that's been working with Josh on trying to get our certification and find out anything that we still need to do since the 2.0 hasn't been ratified yet.
So with the addition, if you know answers, with the additional enumerations, the different things that have been added, that's just going to roll out MLS by MLS?
No, it's all going to be done at one time. Okay. Basically, for the on-market listings, we're going to be doing that within 24 hours. The on-market listings, we will be doing a timestamp on it, so you will get those as the listings are updated. They'll come through on your feeds if they're part of it. The off-market data is going to take us a week after that to finish, and those will not be timestamped. So if you want to pull that, you can re-pull that. But we'll actually keep the ability to use the 1.7 and the 2.0 up. Right now, we're saying until early March, so you can do that, but it gives you time to make the adjustments to your queries and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
That'll be a fun upgrade when they change all those timestamps, right?
I guess that's an interesting question, too. So how do all the timestamps change at one time, too?
Yeah,
Is that just a gradual thing? I'll assume that's a gradual thing.
That's a fun one.
Or there's no timestamp changes, just do it when you want to.
Well, for the on-market, there will be some, and that's one of Al's favorite topics.
Yes.
Is how he's going to gradually, tweak them just a little bit at a time, because I think we've got like 2.5 million records that we have to, 2.5 million on-market listings based upon our last estimate.
Just send it all at once, the
There
same ones, right?
And what about...
We're talking hitting your quota limit, yeah.
So no changes to off-market. Off-market just stays as off-market.
Yes,
Whatever
off-market will just stay as it is, and then if you want to actually pull it, you can.
Okay.
We wish Al was here, and he loves that topic. So, and he's always cognizant of those timestamps, so we appreciate that.
I think it's interesting that we've been pushing really hard on this for a long time. It's a big deal, and it's a big upgrade. We're going to have a much richer data set when this is done, A. B, with the testing, there's going to be a lot cleaner data. The testing, it's been announced at the last RESO, at this RESO. The tests are going to be a little bit stricter now. And we really are using machine learning and such to really bring it down to a more standardized data set. And some of the things that may have slipped through before may not in this case. So that part's been really, really great. But there is also various types of implementations that can occur here. And for me, I know that's something that keeps me up at night, because I am afraid of having this splinter in a couple of different ways. The certification is not quite out yet, and we have implementations going in. So that is something that I know is a little risky and challenging for me. What about for you guys? What thoughts do you have on this topic?
I guess the thing that kind of keeps me up at night is obviously starting November 1, the clock starts to tick for all of us MLS data providers, right? At least to kind of play nice in the NAR sandbox. And I mean, really looking at it, one thing I can recommend to you guys is Josh has a really cool tool that's called Test Flight. And it really will help you, look at those, look up alignments, field names, all of those things, to, at least start the process. Because the other thing I know, since I've worked in MLS since I was quite a young person, and I'm not anymore, is that, many of us have to have forms committees that get together, and forms need to be printed, and, all the other, business of the MLS business, it takes to kind of realign your data out there. And I think, as CoreLogic says, if you really look at kind of the scope of the change and maybe the reshaping of data we're going to need to do for the 2.0, vendors are going to have to pull all of that data at times. So like you said, we're really looking at, bringing up a second 2.0 endpoint. So 1.7 will run for quite some time. So, again, load-wise for us and, for all of you, it'll give you time to kind of bring up that parallel, do your QA too, and then, make your business decision to cut over instead of us pulling a plug, even maybe after the year runs out, because it takes time for, the re-engineering. Though the data is quote unquote standardized, as you saw, custom fields for all of us are in the hundreds. And so there's mapping to be done on for the vendor community once we figure out that data image for you and send you the updated metadata.
Yeah, so thank you. There's the testing scenarios are great. So for the vendors, there are ways you can go pre-test to make sure there's compliancy. And then from the client's perspective, having time to actually be able to work with the data, look at things before we actually do mass updates is going to be huge for us. There's a lot of records we have to update in our tables and our databases. And having a chance to really look at it and try that before a bunch of timestamps change and it crashes, and then that's a brutal emergency for us. That's certainly something that worries me.
Do you think there'll be, like in your instance, Greg, will you produce a change log between the 1.7 and 2 that you changed on your side that, as a data consumer, we could look at that and determine if it's impactful to us?
Yeah. We always put together a spreadsheet, right, and send it to you guys. We used to give 30 days notice. We're really thinking this is like a 45 to 60 day kind of notice thing. Because it's not like we're adding 12 new fields. We're really changing the shape of rooms and units and some of the fundamental pieces of the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I encourage others to follow that with some kind of change log like that.
Yeah,
would be
and
helpful.
it seems, it's not fair to throw that giant metadata at you, I don't think. We can give you a lot more description and fidelity there, so hopefully it's easier. So Dan will straighten me out, and then, we're happy to share at least what that looks like after we get it out to some folks. Yeah, because Dan's not afraid to tell Greg, this is okay, but you could do better, buddy. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other consumers have thoughts on this, or any of the vendors who have actually started to do some of this work have thoughts? No? All right. Well,
We heard some big hitters, though. We heard from Trestle. That's a lot of feeds, right? Mm-hmm. Greg, you're big in your marketplace. Number one there, right? You're in your market.
Yeah, we're just one feed,
Yeah.
all right. Other big topic that I think,
No, hang on a second.
Okay.
Joseph's in the back. Joseph, what are your plans with 2.0, buddy? He didn't even know I was going to ask this.
nope.
This is what Pain Points is about.
I leave for the airport in 10 minutes.
Perfect timing.
Then I'm
and
glad
now
we
you're going
did
to
this
question
now.
everything you said
Yeah, thank you.
as you're on the way to
Much
there.
appreciated. We don't have plans to run 1.7 and 2.0 simultaneously. Our plan is to effective communication, let all the downstream data consumers know what's going to change and when, plan it well in advance, and give you what we hope is an appropriate amount of time to make the necessary adjustments on your end. When we go to 2.0, we'll release it and backfill everything within the 24-hour period without touching the modification timestamp on everything so as not to drown you. But we are still determining whether we're going to touch the modification timestamp on market stuff.
Okay.
We haven't made a solid decision on that yet, but that's our plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm not going to let Spark off the hook. Are they in the room? Spark? Anybody? Flex? Kevin's there. Someone's here. Any plans on
Over here. Hey.
2.0 for Flex? Here we go.
I can speak to that. Yep. Just that we are looking at it, and we don't have our plans finalized, but we will, and we will be communicating that out again with appropriate notice. So stay tuned. Yep.
Perfect.
Hi, Eric Finley from Bridge Platform. Very similar to what Joe and Flex just said. We actually don't anticipate too many big changes from switching to 2.0. They aren't going to be happening. We aren't going to have 1.7 and 2.0 happening simultaneously, but there will be proper change management notification. I know for our system there's going to be some metadata changes where basically we've got the wrong value for max length in places. That's going to change, but shouldn't be too impactful. At least that's my hope.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Man, we got everybody to almost speak. This is great.
Hey guys, I'm Ed Gianos from Domus. We actually hear stories that vendors change records and don't update timestamps.
Oh, who told you that?
I know, right? No, I love talking with Hal on the topic, but as a consumer, you know, we're back to playing guessing games. What changed? Who changed? Do we need to change? And back to the races. So there's two sides to each of those stories.
Yeah, and we know that's a problem. You know, after my presentation around data quality, us doing daily catch-ups to find things that change throughout the day is not uncommon. And I've heard many stories of more than once a day. I don't know how many times you do a catch-up, Rick, on your pipeline.
6 hours-ish.
6 hours, they're doing catch-ups to say, hey, comparing counts or keys to figure out if something, you know, went off market or came on market that they didn't get a timestamp for. Yeah, it's a problem for sure.
I think I know one of the key reasons that people do that. It's good and bad, right? If there are metadata changes or a mapping change where they don't want to blow everybody up, I've seen where a timestamp doesn't change, but clearly the data has a hash will change. But basically, it's to not have a complete timestamp change for everything and then have it roll out over time. That does happen, and then other times, yeah, we have found things just change with no timestamp. But I don't know. I would love to hear why that is happening, if anybody wants to speak on it. But I don't have a core reason as to why.
Here's someone that might know.
Just speaking on the bridge side, by default, we always touch the bridge modification timestamp, which is like when the modification timestamp is in our system. There is an option a flag we sometimes use for when the MLS specifically requests that we don't do that. That's usually for, as you said, one field got added, we're backfilling 5 million listings, we don't want to blow up every single consumer. But that's the only case on my system.
But you're talking to RET servers, so...
RET servers do it all the time. I mean, I've got no visibility into that one.
Oh, you don't have visibility into the communications back to the original RET servers and your communication with those?
Oh no, I have visibility into the communication to the RET server, but why the RET server occasionally has updates that don't touch their modification timestamp?
Yeah.
They've added data, passed and skipped a trigger or something. I'm not sure, but we do have very frequent reconcile to catch those.
Yeah.
But when we catch those in the API, our modification timestamp does change.
Okay.
To be clear.
Great.
Yeah, because when the timestamp doesn't change, the record changes, even a catch-up doesn't necessarily do anything. If you're adding fields, you know, the sync just tells me whether or not it's active or inactive.
Yeah.
It still doesn't actually give me the new values.
I also want to state that I feel like we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, right, of like the day-to-day for a data consumer. And when we started this whole conference, we started talking about international. I think there are so many countries that wish they were having these conversations, right? Like, we are so privileged to have this set up in the US and in Canada and, you know, other countries that do have this, but there are many countries that do not do it this way, and hopefully we can spread the love a little bit coming up.
All right. Anybody else? Thoughts? So I'll go back to, go ahead.
I have just one question. So does this mean if there is no change in the modification timestamp, does it mean that like the IDX vendors, basically, they don't need to update the data?
The general expectation is if anything changes in that record, that modification timestamp should get updated and should change.
So we get the updates based on that field, so.
Yep.
Ed brought up a true scenario that I witnessed fairly regularly, to be honest, where that is not the case. And you find records that have changed without that timestamp changing. For bridge, you gave us an example of where the bridge timestamp might change, and you might go look at that.
Yeah, that's one example. That's one provider. So what about the others?
Look,
It's definitely a pain point.
We do not trust timestamps. And I think that's the statement here is that, and it's unfortunate we don't trust them on Web API yet because I think of what's happened on RETs. So we're still doing catch up and looks across Web API, but we're seeing obviously less catch up happening on Web API versus RETs in our daily sync process. But if you want to solve support questions, you want to have high quality data, you have to write a catch-up process in the middle of the day or at night to go back and say, give me everything that changed in the day, or compare keys and timestamps. It's just got to be done. It's part of the process of duplicating data. Now, Rick's got this great HTTP webhook. Richard had one too, talking about that. Once we get to queuing systems, maybe things will improve there and say, you guys literally never sent this to me. There's something wrong on your side, right?
Yeah.
And much more of a log trail there of better understanding the replication of data.
Yeah, the entity event log in the webhooks should help with this significantly, but again, it doesn't mean that that's going to get updated.
Yeah.
There's going to be ways to bypass that if somebody wants to. So, all right. Topics? What keeps you up at night? What scares you?
Come on, Dan. Oh, we got Caesar.
Anonymous attendee. So Dan's presentation yesterday really resonated with me because he talked about like future pending dates, future sold dates, like just bad data. And that's like a big pain point for us because we're constantly have to create business rules to either omit stuff, on our part. So I've always wondered, like, if other people experience the same thing, which it sounds like you guys do, if we could get together as a community to create like a list of use cases that we come across, and then create like a testing script that we could share with vendors, like at the data input level, where they could test for these things so that, downstream, we don't see that data.
Yeah, I think that's great, Caesar. For those that didn't hear, I know he's not too close
Anonymous.
to the mic. Oh, anonymous? You want to be anonymous? Sorry,
yeah.
too late. He's asking about what was in my presentation about data quality, right? How can we have solds in the future? And I had a couple people come up to me after that. And if you're an MLS in the room, you may have called your staff and asked them to check, do we have solds in the future? Because I heard from a couple people. And I had someone come up to me at one of the lunches afterwards and just said, we do have solds in the future, and here's why. Or the future close date where they expected the close date. And I want to be clear on my slide, those were already closed. Those weren't pending. That was standard status closed with a closed price. So it's like, that, to me, that's an easy validation thing. Like, it can't be closed in the future. And I think a lot of MLSs do have this validation, and I think a focus of the MLS should be on validation of, I was even thinking about that pricing aspect of like how they could stop someone from fat fingering pricing. And someone came up to me and said, our MLS system already has the last 3 zeros in there. And I was like, well, that's the problem, like right there, that you don't let them type all the zeros. And then, so there's definitely a need for validation and checking of that information before it goes out the door. And of MLSs in general, I think that is the biggest win that you guys could do, is to make sure that what's going out the door is high quality information. And I'm thinking a little bit more, Caesar, on how we solve this. And actually, I know I gave a Zillow example, but Zillow actually does do a good job of this, of not accepting that data in the transaction history. So how they have like price sheets in the transaction history, and somehow they're able to just say, hey, we think this is bad data kind of thing, and do a quality check on it in some way. Maybe they're looking at average price and zip code or something like that to help them determine if a price is off or not correct. I don't know. I still want to talk about this, though. Feel free to step back up to the mic if you got more to say on that.
I think to Caesar's point, having a conversation around what are some key fields where we see these types of problems and we have the analytics and our own experiences to show it. And then perhaps having recommendations. Now, obviously, these are kind of business rules to an extent. So, you know, if an MLS is a business rule that they're allowed to put something 30 days out for a close, then you know, it is what it is. But we could potentially have recommendations on what fields should be validated, what common validations MLSs and data providers could do that would really help make sure that data going out, because eventually this data does go out to consumers. This data does end up on public websites. This data does go out if it's not filtered. And then we're providing misinformation, and nobody wants to do that either. But it would, maybe there's an opportunity to provide some tools or some recommendations on what are the key areas, what are common things to look for, and bring some of that down.
Yeah.
That seems like a very realistic possibility. Like that's something we can do.
Yeah, we see, I mean, we could share business rules that we have in place that will call out like the data issues that we face. Like having a pending date that's before the list date. I mean, sold dates, you know, in the future or before the list date, before the pending date. I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah, dates are.
So, and the thing is, I'm pretty sure like other shops have the same type of business rules. So it's just a matter of getting together as a community, whether it's a work group or whatever, where we could get together, collaborate, create a consolidated list, and then, you know, deliver that to folks.
I think it's a great idea. We've got 3 people up at the mic, so let's.
A question to the vendors in the room, though. You know, my DLQ is pretty popular with some of the vendors, but Caesar, you and I can pull this of where it's happening. I mean, I don't want to be the one that calls them out. You got a little bit. You're the industry's website, one of the industry's website. You can maybe be a little.
I mean, we just, like, again, go back, like, just share business rules, and then we'll know the dates, and you'll see the problems, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure all of us have.
Yeah.
All right. He's been waiting for a while.
Kyle Murphy, Canopy. So I was the sole hand that went up that said RESO was perfect. So like I have to walk that back. I apologize. I realize now that there are gaps. That's on me. That's on me. Okay, so I want to talk local fields, and this was an idea that only occurred to me like a couple of minutes ago. So this is like tie level. But like local fields are always a problem for people. You know, like people just don't want to deal with them, or that there's too many of them, or whatever's going to happen. What if we leverage the data dictionary wiki to create like a sister wiki of a local fields library where an MLS or any other data producer could just like utilize the RESO field format or the wiki format to lay out what those local fields are, give them a name, give them a definition, a data type, whatever it's gonna be. And that way, as other MLSs are looking to implement something to represent that data, they can see what's out there. Because like a Canopy, if somebody says like, hey, we need like grass type, you know, like all I'm gonna do is email like half a dozen people I know and be like, hey, do you guys report what kind of grass is in the front yard? They're gonna be like, well, we have lawn type. Like, well, we wanted grass type because lawn might be gravel or something. I don't know. So, but like instead of just emailing the people I can think of where like grass grows, I could just go to the wiki first and I could see like, is there a data dictionary field? No. Well, if I can find a ton of other MLSs that are reported that they're reporting yard type instead of grass type, well, I'm just gonna call it yard type. And that way, it's not standard, but I can do it in a standard format so that if it ever does become standard, I don't have to go back and adjust all that data. We're already kind of just like, we're aligning each other for the idea that a standard's needed. Yeah. So if there's a central repository of local fields, as other people want to adopt that data, they can just see if it's in use anywhere, if it's commonly used anywhere, that kind of deal. Could we leverage the wiki that way?
Yeah,
I actually like it too.
People are clapping for grass height.
Folks,
Let's go.
welcome to your new...
Everybody loves grass.
Your new vice
You are in California.
That's Kyle.
Did he say grass height or type? Type. Oh, I thought he said grass height.
It really doesn't matter if we want grass height.
I mean, that'd be funny if it was height, though. He'd have to keep going in and changing it.
Oh, it's a rapidly updating field. We make sure timestamps are always touched on that one.
Yeah, you got to. So I don't think it's out of the question because there is already a connection between certification, dashboard, and the wiki. So if you ever go into the certification dashboard, you can click the field, it brings you to the wiki. And then under that wiki, if we could get community support to do descriptions for those fields, I think that'd be awesome. And then we already have the utilization rates, which we publish in the wiki, so you can go look and say, how often is grass type used, and how many vendors are providing it, how many people are using it. And I think that the plumbing's all there. If we could get support from the community to put the descriptions in there, I think that's something that if RESO's okay with, we could, open it up to a further exploration of if they have the time and resources to do that. But I don't see why not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will jot down some of the ideas that come up here and then just create stories on that. And then they can go into groups and get discussed. Cool. So I think it's a great idea.
Awesome. Dan?
I don't want to interrupt real quick, but just real quick on that point, in interoperability at the last conference, one of the business cases that came up was local field definitions. And we had talked about, MRED was going to take the first stab at doing a sample of it to get one implementation out there and then present that to everyone. So we're working on that right now, and we are trying to put together something like that would have those descriptions in there using the wiki format for our local fields.
Awesome. That's great. That's awesome news.
Dan?
Yeah. I love that we're talking data quality because it feeds right into what I want to bring up. There's a pain point that I think as an industry we've gotten resigned about. I think we've just decided we have to suffer. And I would like us to finally say it's time for RESO to deal with the hot mess that is roster data.
Oh. Wow.
Okay.
Oh, we got we got a quad. Okay.
Yeah. I'm from California Regional MLS. We ingest from a ton of associations, but it is not a scale problem. I talk to people who ingest from 2-3. They've got all the same issues. And for those of you who are vendors who've never ingested from the association management world, boy, oh boy, do those come in a lot of interesting formats. Sometimes they're flat, sometimes they're relational. We FTP some of them. It's all over the place. And I'm unaware of any energy around certifying those vendors. So I'm hopeful that RESO Common Format may be a path to that. I don't actually understand it well enough to have an opinion, but I like what I heard. But in that breakout yesterday, somebody raised, they pointed out all those vendors say like, oh yeah, it's on our roadmap. It just hasn't risen to a level of priority that we can. I'll tell you a secret as somebody who's been in the product software industry for a really, really long time. The way to get a vendor to change their priority is to attach that thing to meaning for their sales team, right? Have it matter to sales, and that priority will change fast. So what I'm saying is if you're an association or if you're an MLS who works with associations, it is time for associations to attach RESO certification to their next renewal. That's the only way that's ever going to happen. It's got to be like, and you got to be serious about it. It can't be like, try. 6 months out, how you doing? You didn't get there, I'm shopping. It's got to be like that.
Yeah.
That's my first thought about that. My second is a big swing, okay? And there are reasons it might not work, but I want to just pitch it. Even if we had associations delivering absolutely pristine data dictionary roster, absolutely perfect, 100% certified, that would only solve a tiny bit of the real problem, because the real problem is logical, semantic, relational. We ingest 6,000 active offices with 0 active members. Wow. Think about that for a sec.
0 agents or?
0 agents, 0 anybody's.
Yeah.
There is a use case for that, but not 6,000 of them, right? We have office to main office relationships that, in a perfect world, a whole firm has one main office and it's clean. We've got branches, we've got loops. I mean, it's dire, right? The fact that you can't look at the data and find out who the head broker of an office is, and all the vendors are nodding their heads right now. It's just like right? We actually have some of our smaller associations manage their roster right in the MLS front end, and those ones are super clean because we got business rules, right? But the association management systems do not, apparently. And there are a bunch of really obvious errors. I've mentioned a few of them. And it makes me wonder, here at RESO, we've done great about structure, we've done great about transport, we haven't done great about logical relationship inside the data, which means that people can and do deliver well-formed nonsense.
We've cheated a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just think of the relationship between property resource and member resource. And I know we typically go for very flat data, and a lot of that data sits on the property resource. Mm-hmm. Well, some people do honor it and honor the relationship between those and say, you got to go get it from the member resource. It's not on the property resource. There's no consistency of the relationship as you're talking about between the two.
Yeah. We also deal with, obviously, a member in an office can be in multiple associations, spelled differently. The association knows that that's Pete, but we don't know Pete. You know, it doesn't help us at all. The analogy, and I think it was Mark Bassett said this to me one time, it's like you're standing in a muddy river and you got a bucket and you're trying to clean the mud out as it comes past you. Like, we do a lot to try to clean that stuff up, but anyone who consumes CRMLS roster, how is it? Very, very bad. We know this. Yeah. So it seems like some set of rules around consistency, logical consistency, usage consistency, like in that relationship you just mentioned, could be something that could be testable, could potentially be certified against. I don't even know what challenges there would be to consider such a thing. Matt Cohen tells me that's an implementation problem, not a standards problem. Fair. But it'd be, I think, a really interesting conversation for R&D to have about how we might solve the semantic problem inside that data.
Yeah.
I would have brought, from a data consumer side, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, absolutely. I stand up here sometimes as a RESO volunteer and sometimes as a data consumer for my day job. It is such a problem for us. And we get this request so often as far as people trying to create hierarchy and organization, understand who reports to who, how things go up, how an agent reports to an office, what the main office is, who a broker is. And I agree, those are implementation things. This is not necessarily standards, but maybe as an endorsement, there could be something. And if the industry comes together and says, this is how we want to do it, I don't think there's any problem with that. If the industry wants to talk about it and say, this is what we think works, I think it's a very valid point. It would solve a tremendous pain that I know a lot of people in this room feel, and the applause, kind of justify that.
We're standing up some product to solve it for ourselves, but the industry needs a solution. There's no question about it. When I was at Trestle, I had an idea for a feature for head brokers of offices, and I was new to the industry and so naive. I really thought I could do it from the data, and then when I found out I couldn't, it was like, you gotta be kidding me. How are we tolerating this?
That was my favorite Dan.
Yes.
The naive one.
Yes, innocent Dan.
So much hope.
It was before roster data crushed my heart. Yes.
Never give up hope, man.
Never
give up hope.
I think it's a valid thing, and I think there were people here, based upon the applause, that agree with you. Yeah. It's a big challenge but it's something I think we should try to tackle.
I think if you asked a lot of the consumers here, Ed's a consumer, other consumers, I'm sure this would be a very common complaint.
Yeah. Everyone I talk to is like, ugh. Yeah, I considered how loud is the groan when I say roster data in the room? Loud, I think it would be if I gave him permission. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. I know John's been standing there for a while. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, John from Constellation. So this is sort of follows onto the roster data issue, and I guess it's more probably implementation than standards again. But our problem, so I've heard a lot about data quality standards and all this validation, but one particular detail that I haven't heard about discussed has been what happens when the values, and this is pretty common with roster data, actually break your queries. So, for example, often if you'll search on IDs, so there's best practices about searching on key values, et cetera. But really, if a field is searchable, you should be able to search on that field, and the value in the data, if you search by that value, shouldn't break the query against the REST server, the web API server, even if you escape the value properly the way you're supposed to. So it varies from vendor to vendor, but we very frequently experience this issue where we're trying to sync data by certain ID values, and there's a comma in it, or a single quote, or double quote, something like that. And so we'll go to the MLS vendor, and this has been going on for years, and continue to ask why, when you ingest this data, do you not clean it up or reject values that are going to break searches on your APIs? And I never really get an answer to that. And essentially, I'll go back to the MLS and have the MLS fix the value, which seems like a pretty inefficient process and can take a long time sometimes, and sometimes it never happens. And I don't know how many times over the years we've actually hard-coded in our queries to exclude like very specific values because of that. So maybe it's a mentality and issue more, and who takes responsibility for that kind of data quality assurance. But that's one of our little pet peeves.
Is it multiple vendors or is it specific vendor?
Yeah,
okay.
It's multiple vendors.
I was just going to have you call that vendor out, here, if you were comfortable.
Well, if any of their support people are here, they probably recognize my name, so.
Yeah, I mean, the vendors are here, and I think it's an opportunity to talk to them, and I think they want to know if that's a problem and probably try to fix it, but it seems like it's an ongoing problem for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have two more. I think you were up first, and then we'll come over to this side.
Hopefully you're not sick of me yet. For that problem that was just raised, if that's happening on Bridge API, let me know. I haven't heard about that one happen to our system, but if it is, let me know and we'll fix it, because that's definitely a problem. I have encountered that against a RET server, and it's really annoying. For me, it's dashes. There's a GUID, and I can't query using a dash, but whatever. This might be a bit, this is very nitty-gritty, and I'm saying this on behalf of every data consumer who does data mappings. There is a provider that has a custom fields resource that when you hit the metadata, it has 2,400 fields, or around there. But any given record has, 5 to 15 of those populated, and the fields only are there if they're populated, which is already very weird to me. But the part that specifically I want to call out is they have these really weird fields where if it's like appliances dishwasher, it's a Boolean. And that should be in the appliances array in the data dictionary, but it's in custom fields in this really weird format that really is hard for my mapping team to deal with and just takes time. So calling that out, I don't know if anyone has dealt with that one, but it can be a real pain.
Is that a specific MLS or a specific vendor, you said?
Specific vendor.
Okay.
It's a specific vendor, and all consumers have had to deal with it.
I believe
And
so.
Yeah.
I know they've already got an earful from someone else about it this weekend, but one more.
It is a pain point. Just for whoever's out there, it is a pain point.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'm glad, Dan, you swam home okay last night.
Yeah,
The
right
swim
across the
wasn't
bay
too
there.
bad
Yeah, no
across the
sharks.
bay.
It was fantastic.
Great. Nobody died with the sharks. That's good. So I actually want to build on what Dan has to say. I've sat and I listened to us talking about building out the roster side of things, right? We listen to our brokers saying we want the bios and things like that. And I think sometimes we don't focus on fixing the core problems, and then we add more stuff to it that at the end consumer starts to pile up, because if we're not pulling certain things in correctly. I can tell you this relational thing is a nightmare for all consumers. Lots of products I've worked for, beyond just where I am today, rely on us understanding that role to be able to give the right data back. So for our brokers and agents to get the maximum benefit from the product that I rep today, we need to know who they are and how they fit and where they fit to. And we are struggling with that, and it's custom every single time, which takes us longer for implementation and getting that reward into their hands. So I'm gonna say, I'm all voting for Dan, and we should look at those core things.
Yeah.
That's okay. You could.
Look, the process is, I think Rick explained it in the beginning, right? We say something here, we hear how big the problem is, we take it, we try to solve it. Ultimately, RESO solves things through policy as well, which, data dictionary is required by MLSs through policy. There's a path to fix these things, which I think is great. It's just a matter of, it requires volunteers such as yourself to get on board to help us fix those problems. And if there is a solution, as I say to my team, you can't pitch, don't bitch without a pitch. If you got a solution, bring it, and we'll try to bring it forward.
Sure, we always encourage everyone to volunteer, to step up, to come to the work groups, to come to R&D, to come to transport, data dictionary, whichever one you think would work for you, and talk about these things. But just the same, I do jot all this stuff down, and we will create stories on this, and we will bring these up in appropriate topics. So when you do talk about it here, it does go somewhere. But we will go through it. We will definitely. The need for a focus on roster data, to me, I think is a great statement. That one resonated really hard with me. So, and then hearing others say it too, just kind of confirms that. I think there's an opportunity to do something there. I'm not sure what it is. I don't always have an answer and a solution up here, But I think bringing it up will give us a chance to actually go talk about it with the right minds and the right audience of both, MLSs, vendors, consumers, and come up with something that works for everybody. Okay?
Down there first.
Hey, Amy from Domus Analytics. Since we're talking about data quality and validation, I'd like to bring up address validation. One of the most common support calls I get is, hey, you're showing me listings in a city that can't exist in the county it's with. Why are you wrong? And I go into the explanation of, there is at least one listing in your data that has that match. And to me, at least, this seems like it could be a low-hanging fruit. I mean, the post office has figured it out, so how hard should it be?
The concept of the marketing address and the actual address. I know from my experiences, we used to go through and we always displayed the actual marketing address, what we got in the data. At a certain point, we had some very new and brilliant product managers that came along and decided this is actually inaccurate. We should show what USPS says because that's reality and that's what consumers want. I used to work at a very big portal. We did this, and the phone started ringing like crazy. People were quite unhappy. You'd be surprised how many homes in Beverly Hills across Realtor, Redfin, Zillow are actually not even close to Beverly Hills, and zip codes that do not match.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a problem for geography, for tools, for development, for search. I have seen this firsthand. I often wonder too. I mean, I get there's a need, so that got rolled back, and internally we had an address we used for a property ID and things like that. And then we had what we call the marketing address, because that's what it became. I know there are some vendors here. I spoke to somebody yesterday who, when an agent enters a listing into their system, they have to basically find the property ID, the actual APN, the parcel.
Bright MLS is that way.
Okay.
You have to have an APN to enter. The property has to be known, basically, in the listing input process. If it's not, you submit a ticket to Bright, and they add it for you, but they have to validate everything, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And that to me is wonderful on this side. I know one of the things I don't see in a lot of MLSs is APNs. And as we start talking about UPI, and that's a project I have to take on here in the next few months, having the MLS data would make life so much better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a pain point, having that done correctly would be huge. Even if you have two addresses, and we can talk to Dictionary about, display address and physical address. That's something that can be doable to still solve, the needs of agents who know things are local and maybe don't quite use a city, but a community name instead of a city, or something that resonates well with people that are, shopping for homes. So not to say that there's not value there, because there certainly is. But it does create inaccuracy, it does create pain. And I would certainly encourage if any system can offer the solution where an agent has to actually select an APN or a property or something with a tax record and provide back an APN, that's huge for us, huge for the consumers, and for technology vendors.
I can't stress the address enough. This is something near and dear to my heart. Happy to talk your ear off later about this, because there's actually a third address. I mean, we have the agent marketing the address because they want the home to be in Laguna Beach and it's not in Laguna Beach. We have that, right? Agents just straight up lying. Two, we have the mailing address, and that is not simple. There are people who live in South Carolina that have a Georgia mailing address because of the mountains. Georgia delivers their address. So they have a zip code in Georgia to deliver their address. Weird situation, I know. The third is the actual situs address. So in my area, I have townships. I pay my taxes and I vote at the township. I live in a different, I have a different school district than that township. So my second line actually could be Texas Township, that's where I live. So there's like a bunch of different variations that we see of address. I'm happy to talk through how I feel we've done a good job of solving that, but if you change it to what you think it is, that's when your phone's gonna ring off the hook. Like, we get that from MLSs too, who complain and say, you changed the address? And it's like, yeah, because that's the actual address of the property. But the fourth thing I would say is, this is a big problem, not a big problem, but it's important that we get it right. Consumers actually go to those locations, right? They type them into their phone. They want to drive by the house. If you lie about that and it doesn't come up on a phone or it takes them somewhere else, now you have a pissed off consumer, right? Like, location is super important and that we get that right every time, as much as we possibly can. Yeah, here.
Hi, Joe from ICE. Currently, our pain point is the starting of the certification process for our customers. Right now, we have to compile the configuration file and email that in. Josh has been giving great demos on the new dashboard coming and all the great tools for us. The main pain point, and that dashboard will allow us to actually start the process ourselves without manually emailing those config files in. My pain point is I didn't have it last year. I want it now. I know you folks are working on the QA process on that, but constantly having to email Josh the config files, just, the guys, he works so much. And it would really speed things up if we had that tool available as soon as possible. And that's it.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
actually one
I'm
of
not
the,
familiar with that, so.
That's one of the reasons he's not here today. He
Yes.
wasn't here this week. He's like, I have to finish this.
Thank you.
He's burning the midnight oil.
Sam didn't let him go.
I know that for sure.
Yeah, his ears are burning right now, believe me. He's working 24/7 on it. But you're right, that's what we want. We want that user interface where you can do the testing yourselves, and that's what we'll have next month. So it will make it much easier, and it's a good thing to bring up. A couple of the quick things that we've heard so far. We do have that information on local fields in our industry aggregates. It's not on the DD Wiki because they're not standard fields, so it's not published that way. But we have it. So if the group wants us to find a way to publish that in an easier, consumable format, we could do that. Definitions for custom local fields seems like things that should just be added to the dictionary if we have consensus on what the definition of something is. So that's probably something we could move to the fast track group as well. In terms of data relationships, data quality, traditionally we've been pretty straightforward. Validate the fields, validate the API. The only requirements are modification timestamps and keys. But we've talked about qualitative labels potentially. I don't like the platinum, gold, silver because of what that meant or didn't mean in the past. But we could talk about what might be important if you wanted to give an endorsement, which Rick brought up, for having the UPI done correctly. And if we're going to say version 2, you've got the URN right, you've got the actual APN in there. Maybe if it's a Canadian company, you get a different version of that and you get a different endorsement for having a hashed version. So these are all possibilities. They're just things that membership has not asked us to enforce in the past. Certification tools can do this. It's just adding rules. So it's up to you what the membership wants us to do there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, Taylor with Zillow Group. To tack on to the modification timestamp conversation, another fairly common issue we get complaints from members about is photos not updating. However, their photo change timestamp does not reflect an updated photos, neither does their photos count, or we receive a photos change timestamp of null, and really no indication of updated photos. And so we have to kind of go back, ask the MLS to either change it. It's a fairly common occurrence that we
Yeah.
Huh. The null one I don't recall, but that sounds very painful.
Tis.
You want to know how we solve this, Taylor?
I do.
Every update we get, we process photos. It is a brute force method. It sucks. But we process photos on every single update we see of every listing.
Based on modification timestamp?
Based on modification timestamp. Okay. Every time we see a change, we check the photos. It sucks.
For the feeds that are the common offenders, we will add additional logic to do so.
Yeah.
But it's still,
What does
it's
that,
hit and miss.
What does that mean, you check the photos?
So we don't re-download the photos. We validate the order, and we validate that we have the photo. So we look at the URL structure of the photo. We check it against a key in a database to make sure we have that photo in that order. If any of that changes, we'll just reprocess the photos as a whole. We just redo it all to make sure we get it all. So we're basically checking a hash of that photo every single time. It's expensive to do it that way, but we don't have any photo tickets. I mean, our photo tickets basically disappeared
I'm not sure
from
that's
that.
a true statement, but okay.
Yeah, we do still get photo tickets. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. You guys got the money. Just do it that way.
Hey, it's always great to spend somebody else's money, right?
It is. It is. That's what's great about AWS, unlimited resources.
On the issue of data validation, I just wanted to say that we are in the process of implementing RESO-based add-edit listing. So when it's API-based, I think it's much easier to validate the data at the point of entry. One of my pain points that I already mentioned, it is much easier than any other pain points that was discussed right now, is the compliance. I think in the industry now we have implemented standard data, standard transport web API, perfect, it's amazing, but we don't have standard compliance. And sometimes there are unreasonable compliance from certain MLSs, and especially now with the new technology and APIs and using mobile apps, following those compliances are more and more difficult. Sometimes they are very unreasonable. So we need to address that as well.
Mm-hmm. I would say, just opinion, right? But compliance, and as somebody entering the marketplace, and we heard, from people earlier coming in talking about how you get licensing, how you get all that stuff done. I think it was James who made the statement. If you have to have 15 happy hours and 15 drinks before this, you can build trust.
Didn't someone try to, was it you, Matt, that tried to figure out every business rule possible or try to document this? Someone in our space went through and tried to, I think you just gave up after a while.
How'd that work out?
Oh, no. 2015 you were doing that. I remember that because I gave you we have one in ours that after the snow stops falling, the MLS, you have to have a non-snow photo within so many days. Like they have to update to a non-snow. So as we progress seasons, if it's still on the market, you can't have a snow photo still. It's like, how the hell we document that,
Ask Sergio how that it's the RSP19.
Okay. So it's still there, right? Is that what he said? I didn't hear him. Did you say it was still there?
I said, look at RSP019 and see if you can express that rule that way.
Yeah.
For the live stream, that was RCP 019.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Sam.
Sarcastically. I agree. It's a very difficult problem. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier.
It's a difficult problem, but very easy to solve. Now that we have this community, it's just a matter of consensus, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit of a broad stroke on easy to solve. And I'll just give you an example real quick. NAR comes out with a policy around listing attribution. Should be pretty easy, right? It was pretty clearly written. The implementation, though, is across the board. Every MLS is defining this differently. And now it's like, that information's got to be above the fold for this MLS. It's like, what is this, a newspaper? Or it's got to be a certain font size. And you get all these different implementations or definitions of what they think the rule states. And you end up having to build to a common denominator, right, of what that ends up looking like at the end of the day.
It could be a dangerous walk, maybe off the plank, but could, at the same time, though, general shells of a payload of here's common rules, here's common things, these are your base, kind of like this is standard and this is custom. I could still picture in my head how you could still have a JSON payload that does start to assemble this in a way that at least gets it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that it's impossible to solve. I actually don't think it is.
No, it's not impossible.
Okay. That was a great thought.
Yeah, in the API, like payload, we have originating system name, which is the MLS name. So maybe we have to have a compliance resource or something in the payload that tells, for example, the mobile app how to display certain things.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I just wrote down, compliance resource.
So I'm happy to share what we're starting on this. We started this thing called the compliance engine internally, but it's more about what can be in the payload, like based upon the request. So who's requesting it? And then it's an engine basically that makes a decision and can modify the query on the fly or the payload on the fly to strip data out. It's pretty complex, but it doesn't get to the level of position this data in this spot on the site, like, or it basically looks at the MLS. It specifically has a rule that we can't calculate price per square footage for this listing, so don't do that or don't send that with the payload.
You can't have field instruction, field rule.
Yeah.
That carry that out.
Yeah, it would have to be passed to the front end. The front end would have to be able to follow that rule in some way. Yeah. It's an interesting topic. I think it should be discussed because it's a pain in the butt for sure.
Might be worth an R&D topic. I think we go this way first and then over.
Then Paul. Yeah.
Hey, Adam from Georgia MLS. So, and I guess this doesn't apply to everybody because we have a few more resources, but when it comes to the address, generally we'll allow them to enter it in and then give them a fine later. So we have a large table that is literally every city, county, and zip code that matches in the entire state and some of the areas in the surrounding states. But what that allows is it allows them to go ahead and enter it in, and if we've made a mistake, if we didn't account for that one home in South Carolina that gets their mail from Georgia, then that starts a conversation. The agent reaches out to us and says, why am I getting hit with a violation? Why do I have this fine? And then if we're wrong, we'll update it. We apologize for the inconvenience, and here we go. And then the correct data goes out. But it also fixes people who mistyped something, or fixes issues where somebody mistyped something. They entered in the wrong city. They spelled the city incorrectly. So then those people have to come back and address it themselves. Anytime we've ever tried to touch that data on behalf of people, that's all we get is complaints, even if it's better. But when we have kind of forced them to come to us for a conversation, it always goes over much better. And then as far as pain points, I believe it's already being addressed, but listing ad edit from third parties, whether it be RETS or Web API, having standardized ways for third-party developers to come in and read the business rules, read the forms, the links, the field names, system field names, the inter-field relationships. Having a standard way for people to come in, read it, digest it, and then at least get 80, 90% down the path before they have to call us would be phenomenal. As it is today, somebody calls to us and says, we want to do listing input. It is essentially we're holding hands the entire operation.
Comments on ad edit?
None for me.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it yet.
I'm in the same boat. I'm not an expert on ad edit, to be honest. I know there's been a ton of work. I know it was there's a lot going on. Is Sergio here by chance?
No, he had
Sergio
to leave early.
Yeah, he's kind of our expert. That's a bummer.
I mean, I know I've looked at it, but we're not there yet, and it's probably RCP 19. Right, but how to express the rules themselves, right? That's kind
Jeff
of
is here
preference.
though.
So 19 is the rules, and there's discussions in there. Right now, it's still based on the RETS BNF in what's in that document. RCP 10 has all the ad edit pieces in there. And with the other pieces coming in 2.1, we now have the model resource in that explains the relationships and that between the fields and everything. So the new metadata model should help with a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. The rules stuff isn't there because, as you saw today, they were showing, or Tuesday, they were showing Reber as another language that's there. Josh presented Ceph at the summer developer conference as well. We've also talked about black box because there are some MLSs that don't want to share that. They consider it a trade secret, their rules engines and stuff like that. So we're looking at how do we give a black box that can apply that kind of stuff. I've been talking with Brian at ZenList about that kind of stuff, but we know of the pain point and we're trying to figure out how to fix it within the business policies that already exist. And that's where the tricky piece is. It's not the tech side, it's the dealing with all the different business use cases.
Awesome. And so Adam 10, RCP 10 is one to go take a look at, provide feedback, input, what your use cases are, anything.
Yeah. And RCP 10 has been voted, and it's part of the 2.1 spec that's coming.
Okay.
The only piece that is missing is media, and we're actively working on that.
Yeah. I know we're at time, but
No, I'm not cutting you off. I just wanted to
Okay.
add a couple points just to what's being
Okay.
discussed
And then
right
we'll go
now.
to Paul, and then we'll be done.
Yeah, and we just did BNF, so we're really in the weeds right now. So thanks for that, Jeff. Yeah, so 10 and 19, they're add, edit, and validation expressions. So take a look at those. We have a very, very large American city that has an MLS system that's implementing right now actual full add, edit, multiple front ends of choice. So hopefully in the very short term, we'll be able to talk about that, which is exciting. Couple other things for folks who are looking for these resources, transport.reso.org, where you see all these specs. You have access to the open source RESO commander, so you should be able to test your systems on your own until they pass, and then submit configs to us, and then we can validate for certification. So know that that's available. Obviously, you're going to ask Josh questions if you don't pass through RESO Commander, but any company can use those tools right now, do your testing until you pass, and then submit configs for the actual certification. They are discussing in Data Dictionary validation, cities, states, counties, et cetera, which Jason pointed out. We would have to enumerate those in the Data Dictionary to be able to actually do that validation. So fun project. Somebody wants to sign up for that. But that's what's going to be required if we're going to have rules about those relationships.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Paul?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. I was chuckling yesterday, Dan, when you're talking about the future close dates and groaning as well, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of realized today that in the Toronto market that we serve, they don't have pending. So every close date that gets entered is in the future.
Interesting.
I mean, they just go from they're on market and they're off market. It's sold. They put in a close date. I think we have some rules about that. Only so far in the future or something.
Not 2079?
Probably not. Yeah. though I've had.
You didn't say no.
But
Probably not.
Well, we had an interesting one on some open house dates where they typed an extra digit, so they put 2023, I think.
Yeah.
Right, a 5-digit year. Well, by the way, that's actually valid and passes a lot of validation tests, but there are places where that breaks, and we found them. So just a point there that they do exist, and I've got them in my system. The other one was on the photo, on what Taylor was talking about, the photo change timestamp and modification timestamp. And my interpretation of our standard, when they change photos, I change the photo change timestamp, but I don't touch the modification timestamp of the listing. That's my interpretation of what we have in there. So your brute force method would fail there because I won't touch the modification timestamp of the listing when they've just updated the photos. But media is also available as a top-level resource for you.
And that's sort of the challenge, though. There are different. It's being applied differently from different places, and so you have to have rules to support all of this.
I mean, I do think
which makes it tough. And so you end up when you're working with 500, you just end up putting all these extra layers of protection and rules.
Right.
Because and I get that that's a fine implementation. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right, but I think it does.
That's what we do.
I think it's something that we could clarify in. I don't know if that's in Data Dictionary or that's in Transport, but it's vague enough. I think you could interpret it either way. Right? If a photo changes, does modification timestamp change? It's not necessarily on that resource, but it affects that resource.
All of our queries are asking for a change in either the modification timestamp or photo change timestamp. So we're going back on 15-minute intervals looking for probably further back on the request, but looking for a change in either of those that's within that time frame. I just found that the brute forcing method has seemed to solve a lot of our
I'm sure
a lot of our tickets. Yeah. We pay for it dearly in AWS cost.
Yeah, we'll define some of those things and how that stuff should work. But we need to do initial tests for certification. There's just some basic things to get tested. A lot of data quality, the field names, all this kind of stuff. But then as the system is ongoing, like our photos changing, our listings changing, our changes happening to data, as Ed brought up, without the modification timestamp happening. Like we don't have any kind of way to test any of that stuff at this point. Maybe that's something we could look at down the road.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just to throw in there, I mean, I've got the documents change timestamp, though those probably don't really exit my system per se. And just to make it easier for those that do, I added a media change timestamp. So if documents or photos change, that updates as well. So you'd have a single timestamp to search on for media. But that's custom.
All
Thanks,
right.
Paul. I think that's it.
I think that is it. So to all you warriors that stayed to the very, very end, I want to thank you guys very much. I have a bunch of notes on this, and we will certainly get this stuff up into the work groups so ideas are not lost. Again, we encourage everyone to please volunteer, join the work group, share your ideas. But I can't thank you enough for hanging out. Thank you guys very, very much.
Yeah. I didn't have to do any security. Nobody charged us.
We know when this session goes over, we had a good week. So we love it that it went overtime because this is a great. So thank Rick and Dan when you get a chance to out here. Everybody who's with us on the live stream, thank you. You can register for the next conference right away. So please do, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.